Welcome to Study with the Best, the magazine show that's all about CUNY. I'm Tina Beth Pena. CUNY is an institution 500,000 strong, and each and every CUNY person has a story to tell. On this episode, we'll revisit stories that have aired in the past year. Stories of strength, stories of curiosity, stories of determination. In other words, stories of CUNY. First up, musician, teacher, and composer for film, David Cieri tells us about a life lived through sound.
I looked at it as a piano for a long time. And then I started to look at it as a noise maker. The thought became, how many noises can I extract from this wooden box with 88 buttons? In improvisation and in free improvised music, the moment really is driving. It works best in a musical setting, improvisation, I think, if the thinking is turned down low. It's a lot like perhaps just speaking language in general. As we're talking to each other now, we're not necessarily forming the complete sentences in our mind before actually allowing them loose, which is an improvisatory act all by itself. You have to be acutely aware, and you have to be thoroughly relaxed at the same exact time. We have to be great improvisers to be here continuing. As a species, we have to be good improvisers, or we're going to be in trouble, I think. Being a teacher and being a composer and being a musician and being a musician that's genre related all just comes from the first basic STEM interest in being curious about sound and how sound works. What we're after, I think, is more than music with playing music, and that's community. You press one note on the piano in an auditorium filled with 1,000 people, and it's a unifier. We're all with that one sound, and I love that about performing. Music is meant to be shared. It's meant to bring us together. It's meant to deal with subjects that maybe perhaps we feel anxious about or we feel joyful about, and to know that we're not necessarily alone. To look at something and to ask what it sounds like is such a fun game that gives me great pleasure, and it has since I've been a little kid. There's a right moment, there's a sound that will unlock the visual. I love history, and I'm so happy about the fact that I feel deep gratitude about being able to marry history with music, these two things that I love so much, and to weave them together in something like documentary. So with Ken Burns, I started working on the national parks and documentary world, of course, with Ken Burns, and wide space, mountain ranges, and what that sounds like, and things like this. Prohibition, which then gets into the city, and we get into different sounds there compared to parks. And just finished the score for the Roosevelt family, and working on the Vietnam documentary with him now, which has been a wonderful, life-giving challenge, working on that with him. If a scene has a certain amount of tension to it, the music can really work to, it can do a few things, I think. It can really augment that, for example, tension. If the scene already possesses it, it can augment it and really bring it out into the foreground. It integrates our, for lack of a better way to put it, our clocks, a rational clock and an emotional clock, and I think it can sync them in a great way. The music helps bring up that emotional side to get it in sync with the analytical side and things like this. Also, it could fight too, which is great. You know, it could fight a beautiful scene, and we can bring out something that the scene possesses beauty, but then the music is telling us a completely different story. Mostly, the sound has to have a hole in it. It has to have a space vacant in it to allow for the visual to take center stage. What I get out of teaching is I learn everything. So break from the action, we're going to talk about jazz. If there's any jazz musicians, feel free to chime in at any point. We do this together. It just feels like a good conversation where we're learning from one another. Doing, for me, more is learning. You know, if we're doing it, if we're clapping with the rhythm, if we're actually feeling it in the body and using our body to create sound, I think that activates the mind into memory and remembrance. I hope to convey to them with respect to music, and that's that listening into living might be one of the most important things that we can do with our life. Deep listening to one another, deep listening to the environment, deep listening to our interior life. If I can communicate that through a more conventional way, like listening to music, then I feel good about that.
Nashwa El-Sayed was kidnapped by her father when she was only 2.5 years old and spent the next 17 years in Egypt. Her story, an extraordinary escape, make her one very inspiring woman.
I was born here in New York in September 1990 to an Egyptian father and a Puerto Rican mother. 2.5 years after I was born, there was a divorce, which included my father kidnapping me from the United States to Egypt.
The FBI located Nashwa, but because of differing laws on child custody between the two countries, Nashwa could not be rescued.
He had threatened my mom that if she would come and take me or visit me, that he would do something to her. And of course, she was very terrified of that.
Her father told her that her mother was dead, and she spent the next 17 years in Egypt. She describes this time as physically and psychologically abusive.
Everything had a punishment, everything was a mistake. So I lived my life just trying to go through the day without making him angry.
Nashwa's father eventually agreed to a visit from her mother after being convinced by a family friend. Nashwa was 9 years old.
I asked my dad, you know, who's this? And he said, this is your mother. And without, like, you know, questioning or doubting, I ran into her arms and, like, I knew it was her. So we hugged and we kissed, and I took her to my room and I showed her my toys and my clothes. And, you know, even though I couldn't speak the language and she couldn't speak mine, but it seemed like we talked for hours. And it was just the most exciting thing, because that was it. Like, that was, you know, the hope that I needed, that my abusive life is not all I have. There's more out there. So I taught myself English, and like, I began to speak to her and to learn about my culture. And she told me that I was American and I'm not just Egyptian, that I come from a place where I have options. I have the option to study what I want, be whom I want. I am powerful because I'm a woman. I don't have to be abused. I don't have to be forced into marriage. In my last year of high school, my father came into my room and told me that he had found me a husband and that I would be married that summer after graduation.
Nashwa's mother reached out to the FBI and informed them that her daughter was considering suicide rather than being forced into an arranged marriage. The FBI came up with a plan to rescue her.
So at 5 in the morning, I prayed and I put on my shoes, my t-shirt, my jeans, and my hijab, and I ran outside of the door. And the van came and they slowed down. They took me in and they kept driving.
Nashwa enrolled in Queens College and later received a full fencing scholarship. While in school, she also established the Kitab Club, an after-school language program for immigrant children. And she founded the Syria Project, a program aimed at helping recent Syrian refugees integrate into the community. While majoring in international politics, she met Professor Mark Rosenblum, a renowned Middle East expert who became her mentor.
And knew that this was not just a special biography, not just a riveting narrative. It was a life that was maybe once or twice in a lifetime. You'll meet a person with this experience, with a tenacity of overcoming.
He became the father that I've never had. He is always the one that I turn to in terms of advice. When I was 13, I told my dad, I want to study political science. I think this is my niche. His answer was, politics is for men.
After majoring in international politics, Nashwa became a student activist for the Ibrahim Leadership and Dialogue Project.
This is a program that a Muslim American businessman and his son started after 9/11 when they lost some loved ones and most importantly felt their religion, Islam, had been hijacked. And their statement was bringing in the best and brightest young student scholars of Interfaith America to be ambassadors of the United States.
We went to Washington for 2 days, then we went to Oman, to Saudi Arabia, Jordan, Israel, and the Palestinian territories.
I think the trip was a very intense, particularly intense experience for her. She felt like she was back in Egypt, and she, I think, found herself suddenly liberated.
We would meet high officials, and we get to interact and ask questions. We all came out wanting to make a difference in this area and make a difference in our home as well, to introduce the Middle East in like a different form, that it's not just guns and violence and conflict. There's also art, history, and the people themselves are very different than what we see in the media.
Nashwa now works for the Center for Ethnic, Racial, and Religious Understanding.
It gives me a way to show other students our power as youth.
The center recently gave Nashwa the award for uncommon courage.
I'd say Nashwa is on the way to being a very gifted advocate. She's wise beyond her age because she had choices to make, to stand still, to quit, or to bloom, and she's done the latter.
A lot of people have approached me saying that my story has inspired, change in them. And that's all that matters, honestly. And if I don't change a whole society, I might change one person, and for that, it's worth it.
Rodolfo J. Caballero's photos capture the harsh reality of the desert in northern Mexico, as well as the uncommon occupations of its people. We spoke to him at an exhibit at Guardia Community College.
Vida, ay vida, vida, ay vida.
It's very emotional for me to see the photographs over here. When I came here for the very first time, and I saw all the galleries at the Soho, Greenwich Village, the museums. And I said myself, one day you have to show your work here. So now I'm doing it. You have to be very careful with these photographs because they are in color, and color can be tricky. When I use these strong colors is because I'm Mexican, that's the way I see. But my photographs are kind of sad for me, because things for all these people should be better than they are. As far as I can see, we are not connected to Mother Earth, so to speak. Because of that, we are not connected to heaven. So we are living in a space between. When I think about it, I say to myself, what are we doing to survive in this space? I can see a lot of struggle in order to make a living over here. I was driving a truck 4x4 with some friends, and in the middle of nowhere, and all of a sudden we saw this cavern. And inside of the cavern, I found this beautiful lady. She made all these baskets in order to get some money for her and for her baby. It's a lot of order inside, a lot of beauty, a lot of color, with the most humble elements. This photograph is from an area of Durango State, and the name of the place is Dinamita, like a dynamite, because there used to be a factory from DuPont, but they left. DuPont left, so it's not a kind of ghost town, but beautiful place. And I used to go very often because I found this place very quiet, very strange. I really like to be here in the desert. And one day, all of a sudden, from the nowhere, this guy appears, and then he said, I work here in this quarry, getting the stones to sell it and get some money. But what really attracts me was this guy is the same color of the stone. These guys, they are very, very young, and nevertheless they are working on their own business. And the business is a very complex one because they fly balloons. I don't know how to fly a balloon, but they know. I feel a lot of love from Mexico because I spent all my life in Mexico, seeing the color of the food. Sometimes I feel I miss the foods. Sometimes I miss some friends, some relatives, and I really miss the color. I really miss the color.
Inspired by the Japanese style of puppeteering, bunraku, a CUNY adjunct professor has taken this artistic tradition to the next level.
I constantly am thinking about some of the new technology. I mean, I'm addicted to like Gizmag and following these like new innovations on things. It's never a starting point. I try and keep it in a little toolbox. When I want to achieve something visual, I try and think about how can we accomplish that, and then hopefully technology that I can get my hands on as a resource I can use to put into that practice. I'm Cory Einbinder, and I work at the New York City College of Technology, and I am the artistic director of Adhesive Theater Project. The things that I'm mostly interested in right now is working with video and making video an element in a theatrical production where it is as live as possible. The performers don't have to wait for a recorded piece of video to play, that they are in control. To move away from canned sounds, canned video, I think that's what theater is all about. It's that visceral live experience. For the Service Road, we contacted Erin Courtney, a fantastic playwright. She wrote a 2-performer play that takes place in Brooklyn. I told Erin about some of my ideas for puppets. And when we first met with Erin, she heard the idea, she loved it, and started writing this character, big-headed toddler, for this puppet.
Hello there, little one. Are you all right? Do you need some help? What's your name?
Knowing that this puppet could talk, knowing that this puppet would be able to move around and really express itself, I think led to the way she wrote the piece.
Grown-up of lost toddler! If you can hear me, come towards my voice!
This is the big-headed toddler. Working with the students, we kind of took a semester to figure this out. His body is very much like a traditional bunraku puppet. No robotics here, this is all hand manipulated. His face is a vacuum-formed plastic. We painted the inside with screen goo, which is rear projection screen paint. And so we're able to illuminate that face and make it a bright image.
Are you all right?
Inside the head, there's the projector, and there's a mirror. So the projector is actually projecting back here and then bouncing off to create the throw that we want.
I see Donnie Woodpecker.
And this unit holds both the camera and the infrared lighting and the power supply for both. So once he's in the harness, his head can move. Because of the shape of the puppet, you can really get, the side profile and those types of things as well.
Hi. Hi. I have to remember to always look into the camera. Hello. Hi. I can move around.
I love the fact of being able to see what's happening on stage, see the technology, see the performers working it, but also believe in the magic of it happening. Getting both of those realities at the same time. That's something that's important to us in the way we create work. We're at Showman Fabricators. This is one of my many jobs. Being here helps creative juices and problem solving of figuring out things. Oftentimes I've relied on people here for their expertise. In our last production, The Service Road, we were able to use the water jet machine here to cut a bunch of carousel horses that I drew and then put them into this carousel that we built. I love video, but I don't think it belongs in every production. It's the needs of each of the shows that I do, the artwork that we're trying to create. I never want to let technology be kind of the springboard for the idea. I let it be something that can help bring that idea come to light.
She says her guardian angels have always helped her make the right life decisions. Barry Mitchell has the story of one woman who has figured out the equation for happiness.
All right, we're going to start off with proof number 1.
Anna Mojocoa teaches algebra and geometry at Elmont Memorial High School in Elmont, New York.
I decided to become a mathematics teacher because it was my favorite subject in high school.
But before the math drills came the close order drills.
I went into the Navy and served for 8 years active and 5 years reserve, so 13 years altogether.
This is a story of talent, resourcefulness, and determination.
I'm originally from El Paso, Texas, born and raised. My mother is from Mexico. English is my second language. My mother raised us. I am the youngest of 9 children. I have 4 brothers and 4 sisters. I was the only one to graduate high school. For my family, work was more important than education, but that was my comfort zone. I felt best at school. I did well in school, and maybe that's why I felt so comfortable there.
Anna's good grades got her into Texas Tech University.
I did 1 semester at Texas Tech, and I couldn't stay because I couldn't afford it. So the main reason I joined the Navy was to get money for college.
USS John F. Kennedy CV-67 DK-2 Ana Iris Bernal has been inscribed into the deck log of the United States ship John F. Kennedy CV-67.
On board ship, the classes were free. Any opportunity I had to take a class, I took. As a matter of fact, I was able to take 3 classes on board my ship while I was serving on board the Kennedy. We completed my first 2 years of college just because it was tough if we were out to sea. It was tough to go to class, or if I was already stationed on land, then I had to make sure that my schedule fit their schedules.
I was almost not realistic for personal reasons, but I think I made the right choice.
So, how'd she wind up in New York? Love. Love for mathematics and...
My husband, we met in the Navy. We both were stationed in Long Beach, California at the time. He's originally from New York. He was a Queens College graduate, so he suggested I look into Queens College.
Oh my God, it's so great to see you.
And that's where Anna met her mentor, Dr. Alice Arzt, head of math education at Queens College. We invited Dr. Arzt to Elmont Memorial High School to tell us about the widely acclaimed program she founded, Time 2000.
TIME stands for Teaching Improvement Through Mathematics Education. We are a 4-year program that recruits students right out of high school who are interested in mathematics and possibly mathematics teaching.
As Time 2000 students, we major in mathematics and minor in secondary education.
In exchange for their $1,000 per semester scholarship, they are required to teach for a minimum of 2 years in a middle school or high school anywhere in the United States.
I didn't think I'd qualify because I was an older person coming back, out of school for 10 years. So I asked, and they said, let's give it a shot.
But the college courses Anna had taken while serving in the Navy did not correspond to the courses needed for the Time 2000 degree. Anna had to start from scratch.
My goal was to become a mathematics teacher, and if it took a couple more years, why not? I did use my GI Bill to actually serve as my income during the time, so I didn't have to get a job. 4 years later, I graduated through the TIME program.
And began putting into practice Time 2000's innovative teaching techniques at her new job at Elmont Memorial High School.
How do you teach a fascinating math lesson? You don't walk in and say, today we're going to learn about symmetry. That's boring.
One of the reasons why I love geometry so much is that it's so relatable to real life. For example, one of the projects that they do is finding similarity in car logos. I even tell them how I came up with the idea. I was just sitting at a red light, and I looked at the car in front of me, and it was a Honda, and I drive a Chevrolet, so I looked at the logo on my driver's, my driving wheel, and I said, wow, that's a parallelogram and a square. And after that, one of the questions in the project is, how do you see car logos differently? And all of them say, well, now I look for symmetry. Does it have line symmetry? Can I rotate it? When you least expect it, math is right next to you.
She had her bachelor's degree. She had her dream job. She had a husband and 3 children. Next, Anna went back to Queens College and earned a master's degree. And in 2012, Anna spoke at her own master's graduation.
Finally, my degree means to me that I have completed another great and challenging stage in my life. With determination, sacrifice, and passion, getting an education is always an option.
I've always had these guardian angels that, guide me in a certain way. And I ended up at Queens College and with the Time 2000 program, and it was a blessing in disguise.
Barry Mitchell, Study with the Best.
That's our show for today and for this season. For more information on what you just saw, log on to our website at CUNY.TV, or you can Facebook and tweet us. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next season with all new episodes of our Emmy Award-winning show about CUNY. Bye.